So I think we have a limitation of time. So, before we start, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for making time for this roundtable. And I just want to briefly explain who I am and who we are at Akrivia HCM. So, we are an HRMS product company, and we started the company in the 2018 and to really target mid and large enterprises. So, instead of building an MVP and launching it to the market, we built an enterprise product that today is capable of getting evaluated at the level of the success factors or oracles of the world. And after 4 years of development, 6 months back, we've launched the product, and a testament to the depth and breadth of the product is the fact that we've already onboarded a lakh of users. And in the retail space, for example, Metro Brands is one customer that we've almost going live with around 600 stores and 6,000 employees. So that's just to give you a brief background of who we are at Akrivia HCM. And I would just like to play a 2-minute video that just encompasses what we've done, if that's fine, just to give you a brief thing of what we've done. Sure. Thank you. So I'll come straight to the topic today. So I think that coming to a topic which is how organizations can build a strong culture. I think culture is a very widely used term today and with a lot of definitions. But one definition that kind of resonates with me is that it is a collection of values, expectations, and practices that guide and inform the actions of all employees in an organization. So the challenge with building the right culture is that it's very very different across different geographies and different industries, which is why I think having your perspective across different topics in building an organizational culture in the retail industry specific to the Indian geography is something that we feel is very very important. So since we have leaders, you've had tremendous experience in the retail space, I would put my first question to Mr. Kumar Suraj. So the first question would be, what strategies can HR implement to build a strong, inclusive culture for all retail employees, regardless of their role and location?
Sure. I don't need a mic. Difficult managing mic. So, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to a few of the invitees who are here. And so, I think I have around 1.5 year of experience in retail industry, all in all, into IT. So very new to understand the retail industry. My take is very clear. As a human resource professional, I don't see uh, culture is industry specific. Culture is across and cuts across each of the industries, right? It's like it's a culture within the class, culture within the society, culture within the complex we stay, and the culture of our organization. So I won't differentiate between a retail, IT, FMCG. That's something that I don't see. Very clear understanding of culture for me, and the strategy is don't let your commitment fail, is what I feel. As leaders of the organization, HR is expected to drive culture, but I believe everyone from each of the function and business lines are equally responsible. Don't let the commitment fail to our employees. Whatever we've said, we've promised, we need to live with that, is what I believe. And this was one of the discussion we heard downstairs as well. Honesty in terms of what you communicate to your people. People are smart, you know. The more we get into the ladder and we are the leaders, and we speak, junior most people have all their eyes on us, and they understand everything. We can't say anything and get away with it. So we have to be honest, is what I believe in. Second is, I would say, uh, sitting in the office and operating doesn't really work. That's exactly what I have learned in retail. For me, it was very new to understanding of visiting stores, because for me it was like, okay, what next do I do now? Going to store, meeting people, it's all the same. Be it so I represent lifestyle, be it Reliance, be it Lifestyle, be it Max. It's all the same. The formats are all, more or less the same. So what exactly do I do? Visiting store is fine. And then later realized that every store has unique challenge. Every team has a very unique problems within the same organization itself. So as leaders, as seniors, we need to drive the culture of communication. We need to drive the culture of understanding them and working upon them. So these are the two, three things that I would see in terms of driving culture. There's no set big plans that you can do for it. There's no framework. There's no, uh, you know, you can't reward people and make a culture, is what I believe. That's something of the past. 15 years back, probably, I started with the IT industry. This was 15 years back when you used to take people out for parties and, pamper them. And people used to be very happy. Our employees used to be very happy. Gone other days, is what I feel. Nobody would really look. It's an add-on. It's good. It's good to do. But ensure that the communication is very honest and clear. That's what I feel.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar Suraj. So I would like to put the same question to Mr. Alex Mathew.
Thank you, Rahul. So, for me, I think there are some aspects I agree to what Suraj said, that culture is, whether you are in retail or, whether you are in your society, I think some aspects of that culture is common, right? So, I believe the most important thing is respect, right? And I've always, whenever I meet store managers or managers everywhere, it's like the dignity of labor, right? Just because somebody is, doing a housekeeping job, or someone is doing a security job, or someone is doing a, the frontline sales job, uh, we have to treat them with the same respect that you treat the CEO of the company, right? And we sometimes keep talking in our senior management, from doorman to chairman, right? Everybody is the same, and that's the challenge, right? Because everybody feels that I've reached a certain level, so I need to be respected. But actually invert it, saying that the higher you are, the more you have to show respect to people. How do we build this is by having zero tolerance to disrespect. So for us, at least in Max, if there is an instance that anybody says so and so spoke to me disrespectfully, right, and there is a regional governance committee that investigates it, right? So people know it, we are very serious about it, and people also know that it is not the manager who decides your existence in this company, right? So these are certain things, small, maybe nothing very innovative. The second thing is, when you respect people, the second is to build trust, right? Can I trust my manager? If my store manager says something, or my boss tells me something, or if my management tells me something, do I believe that they will follow through, right? And that's the second thing. And the third thing is genuine interest in people, right? The genuine interest that today we say, okay, in the retail industry, 60 to 70% annual attrition is normal, and we all take it for granted because we have only sold the job to people, right? If you go to any Mac store, if you have the opportunity to go to the back store, yeah, you will see a huge canvas that is kept with every person who joins has an opportunity to become the store manager in 5 years. That's what we say, that we are genuinely interested in you. Of course you have to do hard job, the standing job for 10 hours every day, but to show them that I'm genuinely interested in you. If I am doing a learning and development program, do I do something that they are interested in, like how do I manage my money, right? So I think people will start trusting an organization when they realize that the training that we do is not to only generate better KPIs, but they are really interested in me, that if I groom better, I'll get better respect from people. I think these are simple things. We can have various values, we can have various philosophies, and I go back to the philosophy of our founder, Mickey, and that's something that that has been ringing in my ears since the time I first read it. The philosophy is very simple, and most of us at Landmark Group are guided by that, is creating exceptional value for all those whose lives we touch, right? Whether it is employee, it's a vendor, and you would see that even in the peak of COVID, we would have, because our revenues were like stuck, we would have delayed payments, but we have not denied a single rupee to anybody, right? And these are things which are, I think, start from the top, and that's what is the success of this group. That's what you would see, a lot of us being there for a decade plus, because we feel that we feel respected, and we are able to make sure that this culture is driven across. And it is not rocket science, it's more being committed to making it a better organization, a better culture. So that's what I
See, it is extremely important to look at the maturity phase of an organization before you start working on culture. The requirement in a startup organization is very different from the requirement in a matured organization. In a startup, it's more of a person-driven company, and that's what is the requirement. When you become mature, you become a very system and process-driven company, and that's the role that we HR guys got to play. That devising the work on culture basis the ecosystem that exists. Uh, you know, as I always believe that we are a catalyst in order to create a very supporting environment for people and line managers to deliver at their best. And line managers are typically the bedrock of any organization. When HR and line managers work together to work on the cultural elements, then you have a recipe for the organization. One work which I have done in my career is uh, you looked at what kind of existing culture, what kind of culture exists in the organization, and we looked at the framework of to what extent openness is practiced, collaboration is practiced, autonomy is practiced, to what extent trust, as Alex was mentioning, exists, to what extent proaction is practiced, authenticity is practiced, confrontation is practiced, experimentation is practiced. And you do the assessment of current state, and then you take 3 or 4 areas on which you want to work and build your cultural pillars upon. And I think then that's the
So I think to summarize before we go to the next question, I think it's all about defining the right values and then having interventions to actually percolate these values Kumar was speaking about honesty and commitment and trust and the dignity of labor and an emerging organization and a mature organization, the processes and systems are very, very different. And catering to a mature organization is even more difficult. But I think if the founders have set proper values in place, I think it's the HR and the line managers and the bedrock or the foundational employees that have to work in tandem with HRs to, I think, set the culture that the founders or the organization is envisioned for the organization, and all these attributes of honesty, trust, commitment to their employees, and hands-on HRs being, or senior leaders being hands-on and understanding what's happening on the floor is equally important. So moving on to the next question, uh, it should be, what steps can retail employees take to upskill and reskill their workforce to meet the demands of the rapidly changing retail landscape? And I would put this question first to Ms. Richa Singh.
So thank you, Rahul, for asking this question. So you have asked for two things here, basically. One is upskill and reskilling. So what I have experienced and what I have learned with my experience here is upskilling is very, very important for any employee, be it HQ or be it your frontline employee. And for upskilling, it is very important to assess your employees, right? Assess that what is required, because we might be able to cater, we might keep on catering different food to the people, but what is exactly they want is very important. So constant assessment has to be done to understand the learning gaps and prior to identify the priority areas. So once you assess, then you only will be able to understand that how to fill these gaps. To again reskill and upskill, which is very important, to create a development plan. So earlier what we used to do is we used to create individual development plans for each profile, each individual. Now in retail, it is very important that we need to understand that employees don't have time. It's us who don't provide that time to them, right? We ask them to work on the floor for 9 hours. And then we also ask them to keep on upskilling and reskilling them. So we also need to understand how can we introduce, small modules, relevant modules, and then provide the right platform where they can learn. It is not mandatory now to make them sit and make them go through the presentation and learn things there. It is more of experience, more of on-the-go training programs, just like, last I remember I attended one seminar where somebody said that, we need to introduce the modules like Netflix. One episode, one topic. Let's continue. Let's make it more interesting, because these are very adult people, very young people who would want to learn through with a fun element. Now, when you create plans, you also need to understand that, one is for their existing role, which includes their KPIs, which they need to perform. So create a plan accordingly. Also, to upskill them, it is very important to understand what is their next level role. And based on that competency, we need to understand that we are providing that platform and learning based on that competency and KPIs. Here, what is more important for an organization to understand that we need to have a mutual connection with an employee. We want them to learn. What kind of learning are they seeking here? They need to be agreeing to that. They need to have that consent, and we can get that consent only when they understand what is in it for me. Right? I guess Alex has also mentioned that what is it that which is they are seeking, right? Now, post-training plan becomes very important for them here. It is not only I'm training them, I'm making them learn something. Where are they executing it? If I'm sending my people outside, even from HQ, to learn some new skill, new behavior, I also need to track that whether they are able to implement it, or it's just that we have just sent them for some outbound or some fun element. So when we talk about post-training plan, one is execution. Second is also, which is important here, is the career growth for them. If I will be able to use this competency in future, which I'm demonstrating right now, and I'm learning something, I might be able to make a person learn MS Excel just as a functional training program. However, this person is not using system. What is the need of it? So creating training plan, post-training plan becomes very important here. Second is, which I've realized As you mentioned, it is a rapidly changing market and retail industry, and the trends keep on changing. I cannot rely on a one profile only. I need to create all-rounder, just like Indian cricket team. I need to rely on individual to do multiple tasks at the time, but then also before assigning that, making them learn, I need to assess if the person can learn, he have potential and the caliber to learn these skills. So basis on that one, if I have all-rounder, it doesn't only help the organization, but it also helps the employee. So it will help me, I can place him anywhere. I don't need to wait for a right person to come again when the attrition is here. Secondly, it will also help an individual because he'll have a multiple scope to grow further, not at the one parallel line or one line. Second becomes that, which is I just mentioned in a very small gist here is, I also need to ensure that my employee is getting time to learn. Right, as I mentioned, 9 hours learning program, 9 hours calling them here. I understand operations doesn't allow that. First thing is that boss training program hai, khana khayenge, chai piyenge, karenge. First, I need to have that buying from the operations as well as to make them understand that your learning is going to help you only further, right? And that becomes very important here. Right, so this is how probably I feel that, upskilling and reskilling becomes important, and product process and change management becomes a key training programs and learning interventions, which I feel is very important for any profile. Thank you, Rahul.
So I'd like to put the same question to Ms. Bini Ashish.
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So in terms of the question was on upskill and reskill, right? And I'm sure most of y'all will resonate with me when I say that it's too difficult or most challenging time for the HR fraternity to kind of find that right talent, in this hyper competitive labor market. So where do we look for this right talent? And I think the right place to actually look at for the talent is within the organization. And while we are talking about upskill and reskill, and we use this terminology very interchangeably, and I think, so let me make a stark difference between what, upskill and reskilling is. Upskill is basically skilling the employees, the existing employees, competencies in order for them to perform better and to become more productive. Wherein reskilling is completely, teaching them completely new competencies or skill sets, often so that they can actually take up a different role altogether in the organization. So that's for me when we say upskill and reskill. Now, as organization and as HR leaders, how do you do that, right? So first thing is, for me, is obviously you figure out what is the vision statement of the organization and see what are the kind of skill sets that you need. So if you have a plan in the near future, that what are the kind of, what are we going to look forward for, because the technology is changing rapidly. Right, while the technology is going to actually make certain roles redundant in the organization, especially in retail, for the matter of fact, like cashiers and things like that. So if these roles are going to get redundant, what are the kind of what kind of skill sets will you need in the near future, is what the organization needs to kind of first map. Right, and like Richa was saying, and I completely agree to it when she was saying that analyze what you have. So analyze the skill sets that you have within the organization first, map them to the vision that you are actually, wanting to head towards, and then zap that gap. Right, so if you have the kind of skill sets readily available within the organization, all you need to do is upskill. Give them that kind of a platform by, say, job rotation, job enrichment, peer-to-peer mentoring, coaching, etc., by various methods in order to upskill their talent and to help them perform better and to increase their productivity. If you find a place where there is, these skill sets are not available, what you need to do is reskill, right? That is, go back to the drawing board and see that, okay, how can I reskill my current talent, and who are the ones who want to actually take up these new, facets and probably change their career altogether. So that is what we need to do. So that is how we need to kind of zap that gap in terms of the skill set. So in the near future, obviously, the technology is going to pave way, and make certain roles redundant, or maybe in fact even completely erode certain positions. But definitely we need interpersonal skills and technical skills, and I think we as HRs, I think this is the best time for us, because we kind of need to kind of relook and design our learning and development piece to figure out as to what are the skills required and how do we be ready for the future, because it's rapidly changing, right? And that's why we need to kind of keep on moving our needles forward in terms of upskilling and reskilling our employees.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Penny. I would like to put the same question to Ms. Nishigandha Kulkarni to add to that topic, upskilling and reskilling.
Thanks, Rahul. So thanks for making that, upskilling and reskilling definitions very clear, because very loosely people interchange and use these terms. We as HR leaders, we need to be, very much mindful that when we are talking about our employees, whether we are talking about reskilling or upskilling. In the retail industry, the digitalization, which has happened very rapidly post-COVID, has played a very vital role, right? Earlier, we used to say that the customers will come to our stores and we will sell. Now things have changed. For customers, they can buy from anywhere, right? So if we are supposed to make our task force, our people ready for, to accept that, it's very difficult, right? Because typically the people whom we hire for our stores, their education levels, their qualifications are very, they must be like 10th pass, 12th pass, or max to max graduation from some, vernacular medium. For them to understand, learn all these digital platforms is a challenge. And this is our responsibility to make them learn those digital platforms. At the same time, when we, look at a couple of roles, cashier is one role which we were talking about. Similarly, in typically our retail stores, we have those inward executives and all. Slowly and gradually, those roles will also get redundant. In our organization, we just, initiated one central inwarding process. We did the complete digitalization, and when that was happening, we were actually thinking that what will we do with those inward executives sitting in all our stores, right? So, and you can't just forcibly reskill or upskill people. You need to know their strengths, their areas of interest, and then only you can reskill and upskill them. In our organization, there are a couple of examples, like, people join in the finance department, qualified CAs. However, the entire digitalization project started, and then these guys volunteered that, this is our interest area, we want to learn and we want to get into those projects. Now, this is organization's responsibility to actually reskill them, because that's important, right? So when we talk about reskilling and upskilling, we will have to keep things in mind that, upskilling is mandatory for each and every individual, irrespective of the role in the organization, because it is actually valid for us also. We have to upskill ourselves on a day-to-day basis. Reskilling is something which will go as per the interest of the employee and the opportunities available in the organization. At the same time, where organization is, what's the organization's vision probably 3 years down the line or 5 years down the line, and how they want to build their employees towards that. So that's,
Sure.
thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Ms. Nishigandha. So I think just to summarize before we get to the next question, I think the key points that the panel members had shared was, I think, driving your talent plans with respect to the vision and mission of the organization, because it's very different from organization to organization, and having an assessment of the current skill levels to understand the gaps at skill or competency levels, to understand what training has to be given at what point in time to ensure that they're always future ready. Or similarly, I think having proper CDP and IDP plans. So when you talk about CDP, I think it's getting the buy-in from the employee and make him understand that this learning is not just going to benefit the organization, but an personal skill that will benefit you, whichever organization you work for in the future. And also having a proper post-training plan, because like I think Ms. Richa mentioned, I think it's very important that after training, how this is going to be actually useful in his or her own field, will actually incentivize the person to pay more seriousness and attention to the training. So this, I think, summarizes. Plus, I think I would like to thank everyone who clearly demarcated upskilling and reskilling, because I think they're very, very different and used interchangeably, and it's very important that the differentiation is very clear for everyone who's using it. So moving on to the next question, it would be, how can retail organizations effectively communicate their mission and values to their employees? And also, how can HR build a strong communication channel between management and employees to increase trust and increase engagement? I would like to put this question first to Dr. Sanjeev Kumar.
Thank you, Rahul. So this question, I know it must be in the bottom of the heart of everyone who wants to answer this. But I'll just speak something out of my heart. See, what I see, value, belief, mission, visions, these are the, good jargons. But at the end of your floor, whether this has been cascaded down or not, that is the important aspect, right? In my career of, say, of 30 years, I have seen, I have made, rechanged, reframed values and visions being in CHRO, but I could find that, implementing them is always a challenge, right? So that doesn't come overnight. It comes from the tone from the top, right? If your chairman, if your CEO, if your board is basically very firm on those visions and visions, things will cascade down in the flawless and flawless. Now, in my experience, what I've seen, the communicating the values and beliefs, the communicating what actually is transpired depends on the HODs, the supervisors. I'll just give you an example on this. I've seen and I've worked with very visionary promoters. I have been with very, strong CHR, CEOs. I've seen that they were very good in when they go out in forums, they go in discussions, they speak to media, they speak very high about their values and beliefs, right? And I've seen those same people, basically in private, they are basically abusing their people, right? So this is what I feel. So these things doesn't fly unless what you profess doesn't cascade down the line, right? So what my suggestion here is that basically, in case if you want to make the vision and mission very clear and make the employee engagement very effective, you should ensure that whatever the activities you are doing, those activities should be very, very people-centric. And also, you have to ensure that things moves in the way it is desired by the top management. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev. So I'd like to put the same question to Mr. Alex.
So a long time back, somebody told me that if you tell me, I'll forget it, right? And if you show me, I may remember it. But if you make me do, I'll never forget it. So I think when it comes to values, it is first to start with keeping it simple, right? I remember, the previous organization that I was, the values I still remember, right? And it was very simply articulated. Like one of the values was make it easy. And in every meeting, we used to say that, okay, all this has been done, but how does it make it easy for anyone, right? For the customer or anyone. Now here also in Landmark Group, we have, we call it I lead values, right? So I'll tell one example. L stands for listening. Now, it's not, one is about communicating to people. Of course, every new joiner goes through a values, induction. And we do it year on year, right? Everybody has to go through a code of conduct, online training, and there are value champion awards at the store level. All this, is built. What is more important is to integrate it into your systems, right? Like for example, at Max, we have two processes around listening. One is we call Dilse, right? What is Dilse? It's like, at the regional head, right? I mean, we have close to around 10,000 people spread across some 400 locations. That every month there's a regional, head who caters 2 hours, and it's a hotline. Anybody can call me, right? And ask or tell me anything you want to, and I'm willing to listen, right? And this is something that we monitor through dashboards. Is it happening or not, right? Now at the front end it is perceived, at the back end it may be very complex because we have to monitor, we have to sometimes push the leaders, they're all busy, but we have to make sure that we follow through on that. The second is again the same, we call it sampark, right? The leader has to call 5 to 10 people at the store and say, how are you feeling today, is there anything you want to tell me? So these are two things which we follow to make that value implemented. And also I think what is more important is values. How do you see someone's values? Through the actions, right? And it is very important that when you are trying to, it's very complex. I agree with Dr. Sanjeev that it's easily articulated and put on the billboards and maybe on your website, but it's challenging to execute. Is that when you have a value, right? Create call to actions around it, right? It could be through any channel, maybe your training team, maybe through your store manager, that okay, you celebrate a month of making, right? That everybody's talking about it, and run these campaigns and make people do it, and that's how they will remember. If somebody tells me in the classroom, I remember this exceptionally interesting story that happened with me. I was in training long time back. I met somebody at the Mumbai airport. I said, sir, क्या program किया था आपने 5 साल पहले? I said, yeah, really, where? दिल्ली में आप आए थे, program किया. I said, कौन सा program था? Sir, वो तो याद नहीं है. Yeah, so the point is, the learning classroom has only, as much impact. Is it a bad program? Was I a bad trainer? I don't know. But the point is, what do you do after that, right? Do you have some follow through actions that people can, because what we learn, we soon forget. And that's what I was trying to say, that we need to make people do, right? And we need to make people, practice it, be with them, spend time. I think it's for all leaders to spend more time out of office at the stores and the front line, being with them, eating with them. And I remember, one of the Tata stories, right? One of the tallest leaders in the Tata group was Rusi Modi, right? And he never had any union issues also, although he was in the factory, because he knew everybody and they, believed. So there's some tall stories like that where the leaders have to be with them, right? And show how things are done, make them do, things. I think it is not by telling, training, or, even communicating, but it's more about showing them, telling, doing along with them. So this is what I, believe.
Okay, so I'll sum it up in, I have 3 minutes, right? I'll sum it up. So there are 2 aspects to it. One is communicating vision and mission, and by and large, one is communication, right? And somewhere this resonates to the first question on the culture building. Communication is part of culture building. Communication meaning itself says until unless both sides close loop, it is not a communication, right? We say top down, perfect. Companies do that as well. HRs arrange and enable that as well. My observation is the CEOs, the CHROs, the head of the functions will do a lot of communication. It goes down to the mid-level. Now the question is, does it go down to the lowest level, which is the junior most, right? That's where the gap is. That's where the vacuum is. So while leaders do the communication, every layer of supervisors and leaders should do similar communication. That's one. Second, your communication has also to look at the external grapevine that happens in the organization. That's and that includes your media as well. Whatever media garbage that comes in for the industry. We've been hearing from last 6 months, recession aa raha hai, slowdown hoga. We are seeing news that people getting laid off. Now this is also creating impact in our organization, all of our organization, including me as well, right? We all are thinking, pata nahi kya hoga. Do we also get impacted? Yes or no? That's also a communication. How do we address that? Isn't that important? Yes, it is. So we need to talk about it again, openly to our people, like, look, this is what it is, this is the reality, what we should expect, what we should do, what should be prepared for. These are some of the things that we should do. Now, giving an example, as I said, 1.5 year of experience in retail, I keep visiting stores. Somewhere I've started liking doing that, and I enjoy doing that. So the moment I go to the store manager will call all the HODs, right? The first question that comes in is, what were you told? क्या बोला आप सब रूम में आ गए and half of the people are like blank पता नहीं कोई तो आया है corporate से मिलना है. So like, without even asking your manager, you came for a meeting. Should have asked now who has come. So that's the first communication that I do with them. Second, I ask them ki, how many of you every quarter as an organization at Lifestyle, and of course other organizations, we some do it quarterly, some do it biannually. We do it quarterly, open house, town hall. So we ask. So I ask them, do you see the town hall? Do you go through it? Do you get time? Half will say yes. Somebody will look at the manager. Somebody will say no. Like, okay, and then what do you do with that information? Blank. Why don't you go back and tell to your CSRs on the floor? Okay, tell me what did you hear last? So I do that dip check as well. So communication at large is what I see is very important. The employee needs to understand what's in it for them. As part of training, Richard talked about that. Every employee believes and expects, okay, communication to ho gaya, what's in it for me? What is it that I gain? That's also important, and we need to tell them that as well. Take feedback from them, hear them, understand their feelings, and then communicate. I think putting values, vision, mission on posters and boards, good, very nice. We at times go and we say, okay, tell me what is the mission of the organization, vision of the organization. Half of them will be saying like, okay, we need to check. Point is, walk the talk. And I agree with Dr. Sanjeev where he says, in person, leaders have also abused their team members in the room. So, in a way, if you do that side and put posters, it will not help. Walk the talk, communicate clear, close loop, take feedback, and go back with solution is what I feel. That's on the communication bit, my thought process.
Thanks, Suraj. So, because we're running short on time, I think I'll go to the next question, which is, how can retail employees leverage data and analytics to better understand and meet the needs of their employee? And I'd like to put this question to Mr. Rahul.
So I'll keep it very short. One experience that, we have developed a chatbot which connects with employees at different intervals. Someone who has joined new, so within 10 days, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, and keeps asking questions, keep gathering that data basis the artificial intelligence. And sometimes those are smiley based, sometimes those are, detailed one. And keep feeding the HR team with the information, the business HR partners with that information to act on that. So, do you know what is expected out of you? Goals are clear, your KRAs are clear, and if you give a down smiley, then after 60 days, again it will ask, has your manager connected with you? The expectation is that, we work on that and leverage that digital. So this is one of the practice which we have inculcated. It has helped us to optimize the manpower on the employee engagement bit, and it has become a runaway hit. So that is one best practice which I can talk about it.
Absolutely. I think before I go to the next question, I think technology is enabling us to do this at scale. I'm suppose, if you had to do this manually, which typically was getting done at a year-end survey, you'll have probably, you can only do so much with, historical data, right? So I think in real time, you can get these things done through technology. But that said, asking the right questions, designing the survey in the right way, and designing the frequencies in the right way across the life cycle of an employee is very critical too. And also acting on these inputs and then ensuring that there is a positive trend in the sentiment of the employees is something that also I think should be ensured. So going to the next question to Ms. Anjali Goel would be, how can retail employees create a flexible working environment that supports both employees' personal and professional growth?
Yeah, so retail flexibility, well, is saying it's easy, but when practicing, we actually don't create that atmosphere that we employees practice that flexible environment. Well, it's all up to the culture. Like, I mean, I take back to the culture that, it's the ways of working, the kind of inclusive culture that we provide to employees. When we talk about a lot of things that as an HR professional, we, impose on employees that you have to work on. Nowadays, it is wellness, it's reskilling, upskilling, there are goals, there are KPIs, we launch surveys, chatbots, every time the employee is there. So I think we should create something that also that me time, that what we introduced was that me time and team time, that we realized that there are too many activities that are going around. So once a month, at least for 15 minutes, I think that something for self reflection, what did I learn. For example, if it was a training session, or if a person attended a workshop, had gone through an SOP training, or learned a new process, or it's a KPI. So I think that's very important time for employees to reflect, that what am I doing, whether I am on a great journey that I am, do I need something else. And also for these flexible environments, I think we also have certain, I mean, there kept sometimes that no meetings actually. One is for yourself, and sometimes there are no meetings. So no meetings days also help a person to help to see where am I, what's my need for the team, and keeping the vision and the business plans in our mind. So what is needed, what's journey that's needed. So I think that we created some practice.
Would you like to add to that, Mr. Rahul?
See, I think we need to make some demarcations on the rules which can be, flexible and which we cannot. So if someone is in order fulfillment, it cannot be a flexible working. And we need to be transparent with employees on that, why we are doing and what we are doing it. And when purpose comes on the center stage, people do understand these things, in my view. Finally, we are dealing with adults, right? I mean, there will be always resentments that, while I am required to come to work physically, my colleagues are working from home. But I think it's a challenge, but idea is to bring purpose on the center stage and treat adults like adults. We are not here to, we are not dealing with kids. And people will always be competitive. People will always compare themselves. I think siblings compare with each other. So it's bound to happen, but that's the job for which we are being paid for. So I think that's what it is.
Okay.
So I mean, maybe we have not as a group, experimented it so much. But if you look at a lot of QSR people do when it comes to flexibility, that you pay per hour, right? Now today, if you look at a Ola or a Uber driver, he has the power to accept, when he has to work or reject, right? Now, how is it that we can do the same thing in our stores? Today we have a fixed model, minimum wages, 9 hours. Half of the time there's no customer in the store, right? I mean, generally from 11 to 4, hardly there are customers. So it's a win-win to actually look at a model, where you say that which is the time that you want to work. If it's a new mother who can't spend 9 hours on the floor, can we look at a pay per hour? She just comes 2 hours, 3 hours, works and, goes. Maybe at the retail also there is one, what you call the display, inventory display, job that you have to ensure that your merchandise is kept, your store looks good. And the other role is where you are interacting with the, customer, manning the cash. So if you create that, and in fact, we are experimenting, we have not yet started, but this is a thought, we are experimenting this model of part-timer, right? Where you can say, you're a college, guy, can I just only work 2 hours? Or can I only work Saturdays, right? And when we need it. I think there are these tools which are available. We need to shift our mental frames because we being large organizations, we don't want to, complicate it. Okay? One size fits all works for us. So, but I think if you're really genuinely interested in flexibility, it's more about giving them the power. When do I want to come? it comes with its own challenges that, on a day if nobody chooses to come to the store, what do you do? So you need to still have some minimum, sustenance models. But I think there are, some aspects that we need to experiment. Yeah.
I think we'll close this meeting for the day because I think we're running out of time. So, can we open it for questions, or I think the audience are here? That's fine. Sure. So, thank you very much, all the panelists, for your very, very valuable, insightful take on the topics. And probably this was this session was, I think, interesting for the people who are here. And I hope the panelists also enjoyed sharing their perspectives. Thank you.